Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be working with a fantastic sentence starter in Spanish, ojalá, ojalá, little accent over that last A. We'll be using this one to express hopes and wishes. Ojalá no haya mucho tráfico. Hopefully there's not a lot of traffic, or I hope there's not a lot of traffic. Ojalá no llueva. Hopefully it doesn't rain, or I hope it doesn't rain. Ojalá tuviera más tiempo y dinero. I wish I had more time and money. I think a lot of us wish that, don't we? One of the best things about using ojalá is you don't need to change it or conjugate it or anything. You're just going to pop it right in the beginning of your sentence. Also, I often talk about the differences in vocabulary between one Spanish-speaking country and another, but with this word, ojalá, you'll never have to worry about it because it is used everywhere in the Spanish-speaking world. This word has been part of the Spanish language for centuries, and it traces its origin back to the Arabic expression Inshallah, meaning God willing. Even though it started with the religious roots, nowadays it's not used in a religious way. It's most often translated into English as I hope or I wish, depending on the particular construction you choose. Speaking of constructions, I'll be teaching you two constructions today to use ojalá correctly. Here's our first one. Ojalá que plus the present subjunctive, and that would mean to hope for something. You'll notice that the K is in parentheses on the screen, and that's because it's optional. You can leave it in, take it out, it doesn't change the meaning at all. Our second construction is ojalá que, or without K, plus the imperfect subjunctive. That's our subjunctive we use typically in the past tense. We're going to be using this construction to mean to wish for something. For you folks who are not familiar with the Spanish subjunctive, or maybe are not even familiar with the word subjunctive, you have clearly not been following my channel because I talk about it all the time. I believe that the Spanish subjunctive really is the keystone to mastering Spanish. And it's just an area that a lot of students just kind of overlook because it's really not that important in English, right? But it is super important in Spanish. For you folks who are not too familiar with the Spanish subjunctive, think of it this way. The Spanish subjunctive is just a different set of conjugations that are triggered by certain constructions in Spanish. You see something, like the constructions I'm giving you today, and you know to use it. If you're interested in learning more about the Spanish subjunctive and what triggers it, I do have a new series called Spanish Subjunctive Triggers, where you can learn all about them. I'll put a link to that series in the description section of this video. All right, let's go ahead and look at our two constructions again. We have ojalá, que plus present subjunctive. Again, the que is optional, and that means to hope for. And we have ojalá que plus imperfect subjunctive, que is also optional, to mean to wish something. Let's look at some sample sentences that use the first construction. Hopefully there's not a lot of traffic. Ojalá que no haya mucho tráfico, or ojalá no haya mucho tráfico. There's no difference. In English, we would typically say, hopefully there's not a lot of traffic, or I hope there's not a lot of traffic. You could use either one. And if we are translating it as, I hope there's not a lot of traffic, it would be very similar to a construction that I've shown you in other videos, where we have espero que plus subjunctive. Espero que no haya mucho tráfico. I hope there's not a lot of traffic. Just giving you some options to play with there. Let's go back to ojalá. I hope there's not a lot of people. Ojalá no haya mucha gente. Or ojalá que no haya mucha gente. These are the types of things I say in Spanish because I don't like traffic, I don't like big crowds, and these are the kind of things I'm usually saying to my wife. I guess that's why those are my sample sentences today. I do want to point out one thing. You'll notice that both of those sample sentences I had, the ojalá no haya mucho tráfico y ojalá no haya mucha gente, use haya, which is the present subjunctive of one of my favorite words I use all the time. It comes from the verb haber, and in the present tense we just say hay, and it means is there or are there. Like hay tráfico, is there any traffic? Hay fresas, are there any strawberries? Fantastic word. I'll probably do a separate video about it. If you use hay a lot, then chances are in expressions like this, you may also be using something similar, so it's good to know this particular conjugation. It'll be haya, haya. Hopefully there's a table available outside, or I hope there's a table available outside. Ojalá haya una mesa disponible afuera. But if there are tables outside, another thing I'm likely to say is, I hope there's a table in the shade. Ojalá que haya una mesa en la sombra, or ojalá haya una mesa en la sombra. You can use this with all kinds of verbs. You just have to remember to conjugate them in the present subjunctive. Hopefully we'll have time to rest today. Ojalá tengamos tiempo para descansar hoy. I don't know if you noticed, but we weren't popping in a lot of subjects before the verb. It's either just ojalá and then the verb, or ojalá que and then just the verb. That's really the most common thing. You can pop a subject in, but if it's already implied that we know who we're talking about, in this particular construction, definitely leave it out. That's going to sound more natural. You have to keep in mind too that this is generally part of a conversation. So somebody may say to you, Juan está en camino. Juan's on his way. And you could answer, Ojalá llegue a tiempo. I hope he arrives on time. You see, I left out the word Juan in my response, and that's going to sound more natural. But that is not always possible, so sometimes you will have to stick the subject in there. I hope my neighbor finds happiness. Ojalá mi vecino encuentre la felicidad. That's a very nice thing to say about somebody, isn't it? Take a look at our verb, encuentre. It comes from the verb encontrar, which means to find, and it is conjugated in the present subjunctive. Again, it will always be in the present subjunctive when I want to say, I hope something. Let's move on to wishes. You know, when we talk about hope, we can say hopefully something happens, and that fits the construction well. But we don't have something in English like wishfully it happens. So when we're interpreting this next section, most of the time we would do it as like, I wish, or we wish something. But we're still just using ojalá que plus imperfect subjunctive, or just ojalá plus imperfect subjunctive. I wish I had more time and money. Ojalá tuviera más tiempo y dinero. Our verb there, tuviera, comes from the verb tener, to have, but it's conjugated in the imperfect subjunctive, which is our past tense of the subjunctive. As you see, you really have to learn those conjugations to be able to use these constructions at all. Personally, in my own Spanish, I use ojalá a lot more with the imperfect subjunctive to express like I wish, because I do have a good way to say I hope, like espero que something. So I tend to fall back on that. But for to wish, I use this one all the time. Like when somebody asks you to do something for them and you're like, Ojalá pudiera. I wish I could. And you can give them an answer. Ojalá pudiera, pero no tengo ganas. I wish I could, but I don't feel like it. That's not a nice one. You need a nicer one than that. Ojalá pudiera, pero no puedo. I wish I could, but I can't. That's a little nicer. And if somebody makes a statement using ojalá, a lot of times you can answer with ojalá. Your friend tells you, Ojalá pudieras ir a la fiesta. I wish you could go to the party. And you can answer, sí, ojalá. Like, yeah, me too, I wish it too. Even if you don't, you can still throw that in there. I wish I could learn another language. Ojalá pudiera aprender otro idioma. Here's a good one if you miss someone. Ojalá estuvieras aquí. I wish you were here. Or, ojalá estuvieras aquí conmigo. I wish you were here with me. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that one of my favorite Spanish words is I, which means is there, are there, there is, there are. And in the present subjunctive, it's conjugated as haya, haya. Well, we can use it with wish as well, right? So in the imperfect subjunctive, it would be hubiera, hubiera. So on the way to wherever I'm going, I could say something like, ojalá no haya mucha gente. I hope there's not a lot of people. And then if I get there and there are a lot of people, I could use my second construction and say something like, ojalá hubiera menos gente. I wish there were fewer people. I could continue to use this construction to express my displeasure. I wish there were more tables in the shade. Ojalá hubiera más mesas en la sombra. Ojalá hubiera más mesas en la sombra. I really haven't had you translate anything today, so why don't you try this one? I wish there was less traffic. You should have been pretty quick with the first word, right? Ojalá. What's the next word? Hubiera. And this is easy. Followed up with menos tráfico. Ojalá hubiera menos tráfico. I wish there was less traffic. You can make constructions like this all day with ojalá hubiera. I wish there was whatever. Or ojalá no hubiera. I wish there wasn't. So it's not too tough to start making sentences using ojalá. It just comes down to remembering the two formulas, which are ojalá que plus present subjunctive to meaning to hope for something. Que is optional. Or ojalá que plus imperfect subjunctive meaning to wish for something. Que is optional. Well, that's it for the lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, just do me a favor and give me a thumbs up. And until next time, hasta luego.